Long ago, in a quiet little village, surrounded by green fields and winding dirt roads, there lived a man named Moan. His family was simple and humble. They owned a small, weathered house with a thatched roof, and Moan worked hard every single day just to make ends meet. Life was never easy for him, but his heart was full of kindness, generosity, and gratitude. Despite his modest living, Moan never hesitated to help others. He believed that compassion was worth more than gold. If someone was hungry, he shared his food. If someone was tired, he offered a seat and a glass of water. Everyone in the village respected him for his honesty and goodness. To them, Moan was a man of rare character, a man who found joy in giving. Every day, after working in the fields, Moan would walk home with his lunchbox tied in a small cloth. And every day, something unexpected happened. Sometimes a stray dog followed him, tail wagging weakly, hungry and thin. Sometimes a traveler, dusty and weary, stopped him to ask for food or water. Moan never turned anyone away. He would open his lunchbox, smile gently and say, "Here, take this. You need it more than I do." His wife, Sunita, however, didn't share the same view. She was practical, and their life was difficult. Often their kitchen shelves were empty, and the pots stayed cold. She would scold him gently but firmly. "Because of your generosity, we barely have enough for ourselves. You need to think about your own family too." But Moan always replied with calmness and faith. "Sunita," he would say, "a hungry stomach is the worst pain in the world. If God gave us enough to share, how could we refuse someone who's suffering? The food we give away comes back to us in ways we may not see right now." One hot afternoon, while Moan rested at home, a faint voice called out from the doorway. "Is anyone here?" the voice said. It was weak, tired, and trembling. Sunita peered through the window and frowned. "Oh no," she muttered under her breath. "Another beggar. Looks like our kitchen will be empty again." Moan ignored her frustration and went to the door. Standing outside was an old man, thin, dusty, and clearly exhausted from a long journey. His robe was torn, his feet were covered in dirt, and sweat ran down his wrinkled face. He looked like he hadn't eaten in days. Without hesitation, Moan greeted him warmly. "Come in, Baba. Sit down and rest. You must be tired." He hurried inside, filled a clay cup with water, and offered it to the old man. The sage, that's what he seemed to be, drank slowly, taking deep breaths between sips. Relief washed over his face. After a moment, he said softly, "My son, I haven't eaten in 2 days. If you could offer me a small meal, I would be forever grateful." Moan nodded immediately and went to the kitchen. But when he opened the pot, his heart sank. There were only 2 rotted flatbreads left, enough for just one person. He stood still for a moment, thinking. Then, without a second thought, he picked up both rotis and walked back toward the sage. Sunita saw him and blocked his way. "Moan, what are you doing?" she snapped. "These are the last rotis we have. What will you eat if you give them away? That man can find food elsewhere. But where will we go if we starve?" Moan looked at her gently. "Sunita," he said, "this man hasn't eaten for 2 days. We can wait 1 more day. He cannot. God will find a way for us." The old man heard every word, but he said nothing. He simply sat quietly, his hands folded. Moan walked over, placed the rotis before him, and said, "Baba, this is all we have in our home. Please eat and regain your strength." The sage began eating silently, his eyes closing with every bite as though he was tasting peace itself. When he finished, he drank another cup of water and sat still for a while, his hands resting on his knees. Then, slowly, he stood up. "Son," the sage said, "come here." Moan walked toward him. The old man reached into his worn-out cloth bag and pulled out a shining golden bowl. He handed it to Moan and said, "Take this." Moan was surprised. "Baba, I can't accept this. This belongs to you." The sage smiled softly. "No, my son. Last week, a king gave me this bowl as alms, but I have no need for it. I was searching for someone worthy of it, someone whose heart is pure. Today, I have found that person." Moan stood speechless. The sage continued, "This bowl is not just a gift. It is a reminder. You gave away your last meal without expecting anything in return. That is the true meaning of karma, doing good without desire for reward. Your kindness has brought you this blessing. But remember, the real treasure is not gold. It is your goodness." He placed a hand on Mon's shoulder and added, "Use this bowl wisely. Let it remind you every day that God watches over those who act selflessly. True wealth lies not in what we keep, but in what we give." With that, the old sage smiled and walked away down the dusty road, disappearing slowly into the horizon. Moan stood there, holding the golden bowl, his eyes full of tears. His heart swelled with gratitude, not for the gift, but for the lesson. When he went back inside, Sunita looked at him in silence. For the first time, she felt something shift within her. The next day, she cooked extra rotis, not for herself, not for her husband, but for anyone who might knock at their door. From that day on, Moan and Sunita's home was never truly empty again. They gave whenever they could, and somehow they always had enough. The villagers began calling Moan the man with the golden heart. Friends, this story isn't just about generosity, it's about faith. It reminds us that the universe has its own way of rewarding those who act from kindness, not calculation. Karma is real. When you do good without expecting anything in return, the blessings come, maybe not right away, but always at the right time. So, whenever you have a chance to help someone, do it. Not because you'll gain something, but because you can. The smallest act of kindness can change not just someone else's day, but your entire destiny. Because in the end, true wealth isn't measured by what you have, but by what you give. If this story touched your heart, don't forget to hit the like button. Share it with someone who believes in the power of kindness. And subscribe for more inspiring stories about life, purpose, and the quiet strength of goodness.